Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host. I'm a filmmaker on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode, I pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on streaming. I pick a favourite film from that topic and battle it out against a guest to decide which film would become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy part 2. Hello guys, welcome back to part 2 of the podcast where we are talking Florence Pugh movies. But of course you already know that this is the part of the show where we have a look at your Instagram responses from the previous episode. And that previous episode was on our third episode on video game adaptations. And the movie bonus went with Battleship. I guess that's more of a board game, but yeah, they went with Battleship. Anton Kinelov, a regular responder, went with Sonic the Hedgehog. That was Claire's pick from Why the Flick. Talked a lot about that. Andrew Corns from the Revisionist Almanac podcast went with the original Resident Evil. Guys, I'm intrigued. What is your go-to video game adaptation? I know it's few and far between in terms of quality, but what's your choice?
That's a really hard question. I mean, maybe I would slightly plug our next episode on Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, because yes, that's a table game, but there's also the amazing Baldur's Gate 3 video game, which stole many months of my life over the past year and a half. So that one has a special place for me because I really enjoy Dungeons & Dragons. We also enjoyed Silent Hill, which I know isn't a very great movie, but we really loved the game. And I think that's probably the first video game that I played through multiple times to try to get multiple endings. And so when the movie came out, we were pretty excited about it. Was it successful? I don't know. But we do rewatch it because we like the kind of story and mythology around that one.
Yeah, I mean, I love Pyramid Head Man. Or as I like to call him, Big Triangle Hat Man. I think that was one of the first like horror games that, I guess, narratively, story-wise, trying to adapt the story, like a lot of them, it doesn't quite work, I don't think. But it's one of the first ones for me where it gets the experience of actually playing the game into a movie. I think that was, the success of that film in particular. I mean, some of the dialogue in that is absolutely atrocious, but as an experience, it's not too bad, to be honest. So it is my choice then, people, and I went for something a little bit different. So I found it quite difficult to choose, really, and I was really hoping you wouldn't choose Midsummer. I was like, please don't pick Midsummer. Please don't make Midsummer. Damn it! I'm losing again. Okay. So I felt like, okay, which movie can put up a fight with Midsummer? Eesh. And I think the only one really that I think could have done that was Little Women, maybe. But I don't think she's in it enough that I've read, because I've not seen Greta Gerwig's Little Women, which features Florence Pugh. I think there's been reviews where there is times where she does steal the film at times, but I don't think she's in it enough. Other films like Fighting with My Family, that's a fun one. Lady Macbeth is definitely one that's on my list to watch. That was her first big role, I think, the lead role at least. And there were other movies and then she's done a lot of like bit part roles recently, like character actor roles, like in Oppenheimer, Dune Part 2. Then there's been some kind of really great dramas like We Live in Time and A Good Person. But I ultimately went with The Wonder, the Netflix film directed by Sebastian Leo, and you've got Tom Burke in there. And when I was watching the trailer for this, I watched it quite a few times to really be sure of my choice. And I've always been kind of really interested in this kind of debate between, this kind of time period where a lot of people in this country in the 19th century where religion, Christianity, or the Catholic side of Christianity is really ingrained in their lifestyle, in their life choices, and it's all they're very much dedicated to God. And then when science comes into play with the Industrial Revolution, how it's just always been really interesting for me of how those two kind of institutions butt heads and kind of entangle themselves. And this is kind of another sort of religion versus science type film set in this era that always kind of really interests me. And it kind of has slight horror vibes as well. Like the music in this is really extraordinary for me, really haunting. So, and I do like my horror stuff. It's not really a horror movie, I don't think, but it definitely, there are times when it definitely gets under your skin for sure. So ultimately I went with The Wonder. So initial reactions from you guys, what did you make of The Wonder?
For me, this was interesting because I was not familiar with this movie at all. And I very rarely go into a movie like so blind. And it was really nice to actually do that and, just experience it without having read a lot about it in the first place. And again, I think in some ways it makes a really good companion piece to Midsommar because it's another Florence Pugh kind of command performance. I think you have another movie where without her, maybe you don't have a movie. She really captures this performance great and kind of, leads the film in a way. She also has to do a lot of emotional stuff in it. So again, we're back to that. But I also really enjoy the tension between religion and science, especially in this time period where you do start to have the scientific advances that are challenging religion, which at that point had such a profound impact on life, everyday life and culture for every level of society. And I think that, that is an interesting topic. I also feel that there's a lot going on here with women and the way that women are treated in religion as kind of expendable to make a point in the case of this girl. So I think that there's just a lot going on here that I found very interesting. And I was glad that you picked it because it's also a quiet little film. And I don't think it would stick out much. I may not have ever had this much on my radar unless I was really going through a Florence Pugh completionist run or something.
Yeah, for me, I would say the first thing I think of when I watch this is The Crucible. I can't help myself. That's the first thing that comes to mind for me. Right. Because every time, Florence Pugh has to go and meet with that table of dudes, it just feels, the council. It feels like just another trial scene. I feel like she is on trial, and if she says or does the wrong thing, she could end up in some really heavy hot water. But in addition to thinking about The Crucible, I guess I just have Massachusetts on my mind. I think about Jaws. Because I think about...
Where do you come up with this?
I don't know, man. I got a crazy mind. Because
everything goes back to Jaws.
Everything does.
50th anniversary at the moment.
I could go on a whole tangent, so I'll try to stay on board. Yeah. All right, so the reason I think of Jaws is because it's like a spectacle. And, when you have something that you're proud of, like you have these wonderful beaches in Nantucket, you're proud of it. You want people to come out and you want people to enjoy it. So they're coming out there, but there's a very real danger in this. And in this, it's actually a person's life, which again is the case in Jaws. So I just feel like, I don't know what the fuck I'm saying, guys, but you know what? Let's just say, and then Richard Dreyfuss.
You kind of convinced me in a way.
In a way, but then I just fell off the fucking roof.
She's Florence Pugh is like the Roy Scheider of this movie.
Yeah, here we go.
Saying, these are, these bad things are going to happen if you don't intervene. And they're like, we can't because, this is getting a lot of attention and we like the attention. So there's your Jaws.
Robert Shaw as like the council, maybe.
Oh, right.
I don't know.
This is great. Yeah, you guys are getting me going here. Yeah, so it's like, I mean, we have, the mayor, but I think with this film, it's just something where people are so excited to have a miracle, and they're also so proud of themselves because they all feel that they can take credit for this miracle, and it also makes them feel like they're closer to God. And I also feel that somewhere in there has to be some kind of thoughts of riches, some kind of monetary compensation.
Well, it is bringing money. I mean, people come to visit her and drop money in the poor box, which, the family isn't taking the money.
For the church.
But the church is taking money. Yes. They are getting money.
Yeah, they want to build a shrine to her.
And they feel special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so it gives me this movie, and I mean this in a good way, because it's the point of the movie. This is the kind of movie that really just will make me sick, because you're watching someone die, and everyone is so excited because they're profiting from it in some way.
Well, and this was like a true thing that happened. Like, there's many instances in history of these girls who would say that they weren't eating, and it was for religious reasons. And it almost is kind of like a precursor to like pro anorexia people on Instagram or something. I mean, it's weird. I just thought of this like this morning. I was thinking about it because I was thinking about these historical cases where this happened, and it really was very similar to this. They were connecting it to some sort of religious enlightenment, that they were not eating and they would see visions and stuff. And, really they're just probably hallucinating because they're starving themselves to death.
Sure.
But there is not that I would know this, but there is kind of a euphoria that anorexics can sometimes experience when they're not eating. Right. So, because there's a real psychological aspect to, starving yourself on purpose that I think, becomes a little bit of a subtext in this movie as well, because eating disorders are a huge issue. And this is kind of like, before there was like a, social media reason, like to starve yourself. The reason that these girls were doing it is for attention with religious issues, and it worked because the church is like, looking at them as some kind of like potential saint material here, like they're getting some special message from the universe, and, they're just using that to their own means. Like they only care about the girl in what she represents to them, and what she can get for them.
Their very own miracle.
Yeah. And they don't understand, where this came from. Florence Pugh's character Lib eventually finds out, that the reason that she started doing this wasn't for some, enlightenment reason or because she's trying to have visions. It's because she was like sexually traumatized and assaulted by her brother on many occasions and feels guilt for that and thinks that she needs to atone for it. So there's a really dark and deep reason for why she's doing this that the church has no awareness of. And frankly, they don't care. They don't want to know. They don't want that to be the reason. They want the reason to be some, profound, beautiful thing about communicating with God, but it really isn't that.
I think another like thematic thing that comes across in this film that relates to today is just people believe what they want to believe. Like truth is very much muddled, like in this story, and it is kind of in a certain extent today as well with social media as well. So I mean, you have that kind of that last council scene that it's proven that her mother was kissing her good night and good morning and feeding her food like a bird, giving her nutrition, hiding the fact that she's being fed. And yet that's spelled out to them from Florence Pugh. But obviously the Anna denies it, but they're not listening to the scientific evidence that Florence Pugh is giving them. They don't want to listen to that. So even though they asked her to come here to watch her in these shifts. So it's just a really interesting film in terms of characters and people believing what they want to believe, and there's no other influence that's going to change their mind on these things. But it's like, okay, we've just got to bring someone in here to just kind of maybe bring some sort of counter argument to in case we are wrong, but our mind is kind of made up anyway. So what happens in The Wonder? Well, going back to IMDb, as I always do. So a tale of two strangers who transform each other's lives, a psychological thriller and a story of love pitted against evil. Well, that doesn't explain much. So, directing then. I think there's not too much I noticed, I think, with like the directing of this film, other than the atmospherics are really kind of really interesting in terms of the details. Like Midsummer is very rich in that, and the music especially is really kind of haunting and powerful in moments. And there's a very creative, and there's not a lot of like instruments that you would naturally hear in and that you would associate in a film, in a period film like this. So that was kind of really cool to hear. But obviously the first thing you see is the sets before we enter this world. And that was very surprising to me at first. But when the camera kind of pans around and we enter the interior of the sets and the voiceover comes on and explains it's like you're being invited to watch this film and to believe in this story, you would normally do that anyway in any film. But then later, about 25 minutes in, Florence Pugh's character, Nurse Wright, finds Kitty O'Connell while she's digging out Pete and asks, what was the last time the girl ate? What was the last thing the girl ate? Sorry. And they have kind of this exchange about stories. Then when Wright walks off, Kitty looks directly into the camera, breaking the fourth wall, and says, hello again. I told you we are nothing without stories. And that moment is very kind of unnerving to me, how like casually that happens. Plus you have this very like haunting music, as I've said, that's not necessarily like otherworldly, but it definitely gets under your skin. You know, that fourth wall break definitely makes you feel part of the film in a way that you're kind of complicit when you're watching it. Whereas a lot of like fourth wall breaks are done in comedies and for a laugh. That's definitely not the case here.
Yeah, this was more Shakespearean tragedy type of a wall break, like a soliloquy type thing.
It reminds me of Jesus Christ Superstar with the way we see everything in the studio at the beginning, like the beginning of Jesus Christ Superstar. We see the people get off on the bus in the desert, and they all come out and they're just the actors and they're kind of getting things ready to go. It's a similar vibe in this film. That's what I get out of it, and then we bookend it. Though I have to say, in this film, I would have much preferred to not have those moments, because for me, it took me longer to get into the film because of that. It was not something to me that I felt served the main story. And I didn't necessarily feel like we needed that device, because once again, just like Midsommar, we have incredible acting. I feel that our acting in this brings us through the roof. So I would have just been happy to enjoy the interiors, the lighting that they created, and the performances. This feels like a very earthy film. We have all these beautiful countryside shots. I don't need to see the mechanics.
C-stand with a light attached.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I felt that was ineffective for me, almost to the point of being detrimental to my enjoyment of the movie, because I do feel that it was unnecessary. It's telling me something I don't need to be told. It's like, we tell stories. Yeah, I know. I'm watching one. If you'll just get to it, and it is a very competently made movie as far as like the technical aspects of it. I think that the lighting throughout is beautiful. Like it really feels period. Like, it's so dark inside the internal spaces and only lit by fire and things, which is beautiful. And then there's this one really amazing kind of cross-dissolve shot that really struck me, where Nurse Wright is walking next to like this beautiful kind of hilly mountain type area, and that cross dissolves into the mountain being the girl, Anna, kind of sleeping in a bed. And I thought that was really beautiful. Like, it was so well matched. And
it actually looked like the shot from Midsommar.
Yeah, that was my favorite shot.
It's a great shot. Yes. And that I liked that. It was just a really nicely done thing, very artistic, but not in an intrusive way. And I feel like the bookends of this are super intrusive, and the fourth wall break is super intrusive. And again, it's telling me something that I don't need to know. Like, I immediately thought, could I watch this movie without that? And I was like, yeah, and I want to watch this movie without that, because I don't think that it serves any purpose for me. And it kind of just takes away from a movie that otherwise I thought was pretty great. The only reason I could come up with for them to do it is because otherwise they kind of just have this very quiet and simple period film that doesn't have any gimmicks to it. So they decided to shoehorn in some gimmicks that don't really feel very good. And I mean, you even said that it set you up, John, with like an expectation that like they were going to pull the rug out from under us later. You know, because they kept stressing that this is about storytelling and stories and how stories are important to people. And it makes you feel like something's going to happen that's going to twist you, you know, with the story, which doesn't. I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, the director's going to come out onto set and like, no, let's do it again. Come on.
Yeah. Director just comes out with a coffee in the middle of the film.
Yeah.
This is a movie.
Yeah. I mean,
walks off.
That's basically what happened. It's like, stories are important. Okay, I know. Please tell one.
Yeah, it's a bit on the nose, isn't it? I think possibly it could be maybe a tonal problem, because I think with that character, Kitty O'Donnell, like she turns in, like with that last shot you have with Florence Pugh, Tom Burke, and Nan, as she's called, at the end. And yeah, it's kind of really interesting with that, and she's not dressed in her normal Irish clothes, but she's dressed all in black and not her Irish clothes at all. And it's like she's playing two characters. Like, the other character is the narrator of this film. Like, the only other time you see this character is with that fourth wall break. I feel like when she looks at the camera, she's a different character right there. So I still don't know what to make of it, really, with these behind the scenes bookends of this film. But I guess following the themes of this film about belief and storytelling, we all ultimately believe in what we believe. You know, that includes watching stories play out on screen. Like, we have no emotional investment in anything if we don't believe it. But does it need to be in this film? Does it need to be at the beginning, at the end, with these behind the scenes shots? Maybe not. But I do kind of admire the big swing of it, that they're trying something different with a story like this. So I kind of get what they're going for. But I think maybe the film is pretty dark anyway, with obviously when you learn the truth of what happens to Anna. But maybe somehow if it was more narratively darker in the way it was shot or something, it might have worked better tonally. I don't know, but I appreciate the swing.
Yeah, I mean, we both come from a theater background, so I mean, I think you see this stuff in theater all the time. Like, Our Town is like performed in every American high school, and it has like the narrator character who's just like, we're going to tell you a story about our town, and like, I get it, but again, I guess that's another part of it for me, is like, it's kind of overdone. And the ending where it pans like away from, those three characters kind of having their happy ending to this woman who we already saw. And she is in modern dress, and she's kind of just like, yeah, see, you get it, right? And she doesn't say that, but it's like the look on her face. And I'm like, enough. Like, I'm just like, stop it. Like, I don't know. As you could tell, this irritated my soul a little bit, but it's just because otherwise I thought the movie was really, really this great, like, historical kind of psychological drama with like these definite horror elements in it. that were really well done. And you kind of just put the stuff in there as some way to make it more artistic, and in fact it detracted for me from the artistry.
It definitely shortchanged all the work that they had put in. It's a great story. I mean, I felt that the Florence Pugh character all right, I'm going on another one of these, but trust me, it makes sense this time. Yeah, we're doing it. So it reminds
Florence Pugh's the shark.
Yeah. She's like, kind of like a shark, and yeah, it's like Nantucket. No, what I feel like with Florence Pugh is like her character, if you think about it, is kind of like an amalgamation of some Johnny Depp characters from the character he played in Sleepy Hollow, and also from Hell. So we have this tortured character, right? Who has a drug situation happening to kind of ease their pain or perhaps intensify the pain. It seems like in some situations you have a very intelligent character that's using, logic and science to get to the truth of these matters. So it's like she's this very interesting detective, and I really enjoy that story. And I would have liked it if they embraced more of almost that kind of detective element of it at the beginning and the end, as opposed to being inside of the studio. It just, again, like I talked about Jesus Christ Superstar, for some reason it works with us seeing them as actors at the beginning and the end. It's like this transformative journey, and people are different when they leave. And
it's because of the tone of that movie. I think Martin's point about being tonal is a really good point. Like the tone of Jesus Christ Superstar is, this like hippie free spirit, like we're going to tell the story in a new way.
Yeah.
And because then you go into the story, which has a lot of artifice to it, with people dancing and choreographed, numbers and singing and, being kind of over dramatic, it works because that's a way to kind of couch what you're going to see into a larger narrative. Like it makes you understand it in the context of a musical, like a theatrical type musical. This, I think, was trying to use that device, to do something, but I just don't know what it was. And I don't know that it was necessary in the place of a film that is otherwise really naturalistic and very, the acting at least, I don't think of anyone in this movie as being, acting on purpose. They're like showing what an actor they are, except for that one character of Kitty who just sticks out like a sore thumb because everybody else is otherwise very naturalistic. And when she's not talking to the camera, she also is. Like when she's talking to the other people in the scene, she seems naturalistic as well. So it's a little weird. I can understand what they were trying to do. Again, we've seen it millions of times in theater, but it kind of draws away from what the movie does well for me.
And you can tell how fired up we are about it because we just can't get
stop
past
talking
it.
about it. Yeah.
It's the one thing that George and I kept like. We spent time like, we would say, I liked this, I liked this, I liked this. But what about that frame story?
When I forget about it is when I like the movie more.
I forgot about the frame story, and then we got to the ending, and I went, oh.
Also, I feel like she is playing two different characters, because the character of Kitty O'Donnell, when she is trying to read like the newspapers and books and things, it's mentioned that she's not educated and she struggles with reading. But when she is narrating, there's no issue at all. She's very fluid with all that. So it definitely feels like there's two characters there that she's playing.
I didn't catch that.
Even though, really, I think we're in agreement. I don't mind the narrating stuff, but like maybe it should have been a different voice as well. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. She's totally different. Like, I totally buy her as just this regular, person in this Irish community that's not very well educated. And, these people are farmers and, it's not a city. It's way out in the country. But, yeah, I think when she goes back to being, like, the one that talks to the camera, it's almost like that, I don't know, smiling, nodding, Jack Nicholson kind of gif that you see all the time where you're like... And I'm just like, stop. Like, I get
You're watching a movie.
It's like a told you it was a movie. Yeah. And then I'm like, I know it's a movie. Stop. Yeah. It's odd.
So I think throughout most of the film, it's very simply directed, I think, in terms of the camera work. Like, in a way, with most films of this type, where for the most part it's very like wide, and we only go in close when the emotions are only really slightly heightened, to be honest. But there was one thing that I began to notice more and more, where these very slow push-in shots, mostly very wide on the characters, and they become most noticeable the deeper you go into this film. Like, they become more prominent when the eerie music is played at the same time. There's certainly a lot of these shots on Florence Pugh alone, and they become more obvious, and it's like she's being watched by God or something, or the narrator,
okay,
in air quotes. Like she's being like watched this whole time too. You know, the watcher being watched, who watches the watchman. You know, the one little scene that I got this feeling from the most was when Nurse Wright comes down for breakfast one morning, and Tom Burke's character Will, the journalist, comes to talk to her, and he's very much of the opinion that this is a trick and that the family are secretly feeding the girl. There's no argument about it from his point of view. And when Tom Burke enters the room that Nurse Wright is in, as she sat down, the camera shot is outside of the room, and this wall kind of partially is hiding the characters, and the camera sort of really drifts forward more obviously. It feels kind of obvious in this moment, like someone is watching them. So that was really interesting to me and really well done, that there's always kind of this constant impending like tension throughout this film, with that kind of feeling that the camera is always on the move, that there's always someone watching. Another film that we've spoke about on the podcast years ago, Prisoners, with
great one,
Denis Villeneuve's film, that happens a lot. Like the camera just drifts forward and you're kind of out of sync, out of rhythm with the editing sometimes as a viewer. Like, we're on this shot a long time here. But done in a very good way to unnerve you. And it's not really to that level, I don't think, in this film, but it's just done in such a way that you feel like the watcher is being watched. Did you get that feeling? Or
and I feel like it's a confessional, actually, you know, because it's like it's kind of dim around you, and particularly when we have the big scene where it's revealed what's been going on, you know, with the brother. It really gives me a feeling of, yes, it's I can feel someone watching, and it's like we're peeking into a dark place. And I think it's probably just because of all the religious themes in this that I think about a confessional and someone, you know, looking in there, because the lighting in this feels very natural. And there's a lot of like dark areas. Really, when it's light out is when, you know, they're illuminated best. Otherwise, it's just like, you know, these kind of small pools of light.
I didn't think about it in that way when I was watching it, but I think it makes a lot of sense, because you also have your main character, Nurse Wright, is somebody who is living two very different lives. You know, she has her outer life that everyone sees, where she's like this competent professional nurse. She stands up for what's right. It's a good name for her, right? Nurse Wright. She stands up for what she thinks is right. She's trying to do a good job. But internally, when she's alone and it's only her, she is a very broken person. There's a lot of stuff that I'll probably get into during the screenplay part about, like, you know, her as a woman. Like, you know, first of all, this time, you know, a lone woman was kind of untrustworthy in some ways. She has like failed at being a woman, and the way that society at that time would define a woman as being a wife and a mother, being, you know, the ultimate thing you could hope for or strive to achieve. And her child died, and her husband has run off.
Her name is Lib Wright.
lib.
Yeah,
again,
I just wanted to point that out to add to what you're saying.
Women's lib. I don't know. It's ridiculous.
Well, no, I was thinking about liberation. Just I know that's
what women's lib is.
But like freedom. Like, I mean, we actually get the kid out of there. Like, I mean, that's
yes, and that's what ends up happening, which is good,
Like lib, right?
And I never expected that to happen at the end either.
All right, forget. Okay, I'm out. You keep going.
Some point was trying to be made.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. But yeah, like, I mean, she is terrified of people knowing who she really is, I think. So part of this for her is like maintaining her ability to stand up for what she believes in and for what she thinks is morally the right thing to do, while struggling also with like her, self-hate and agony over, the things that have happened to her. So it's another journey movie, like an internal journey for a Florence Pugh character to go through, where she's experienced a lot of trauma that she has to process through another traumatizing experience. Poor Florence Pugh. She's, can't stop being traumatized and everything. She was traumatized in Oppenheimer too.
Well, she got a new family in this too.
That's true.
Favorite scene or shot for you, John?
I have to go with the shot that Georgia mentioned with, she's asleep. We have the outline. It's the hills. Gorgeous.
That's mine as well.
Yeah, it's so good.
Same. Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah.
It just looked great. And, it's a moment where I sat up and took notice because, as Martin's saying, it's otherwise pretty simply made film. Not saying that in a bad way, but there's just not a lot of loud stuff going on. But that was the moment where I actually sat up and saw something really artistic happening and thought, I really like this.
And it's kind of symbolic as well at this point in the film. Like Anna is becoming increasingly ill and could die at any moment. And it's kind of sort of maybe returning to the earth in death, potentially. So, yeah, that's how I saw that in that shot in particular.
Yeah, and also I think that it shows her importance to Nurse Wright. Like, Nurse Wright initially was just thinking about this as a job, but now it's like a matter of life and death, and it's, mountainous in her perception.
Directing score, guys, what are you going for?
Well, I'm not going to double dip on my very big hatred of the the fourth wall breaking and the artificiality parts. I'm going to ascribe that to my directing score, and I will not talk about it during screenplay.
You mean the frame story?
Yeah.
Did you like that?
No.
Okay.
I spent 30 minutes.
I know, that was my gag.
Screeing about it, so I think everybody knows how I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I usually am not that negative about things, but like it just really bugged me. So, but otherwise, it is very competently directed, and they do draw performances with actors that are really good. So I'm going to knock it down a bit, but for me, I'd probably give that around a 7.
Yeah, I think
I felt like you would knock it down a little more.
Okay, so for me with this is what I will say.
Yeah.
With the direction, I think that it does take talent to allow the camera and the actors to just be and perform. Because, like you mentioned, Marchin. Look,
who's that guy?
Who's Marchin? All right, but as you mentioned, Martin,
he's my replacement.
It's your evil twin.
It's go good. But as you said, Martin, like it's something where we have a lot of static shots, we have wide shots, and we don't really do anything that is really conspicuous with the camera. It feels like a play. And so it's like the camera is just there to capture the performance, and it's not really going to do anything else. And the actors are just there to act. So I feel that the director had a lot of trust in, the DP and also in the actors to give this performance, this organic performance. So I think that there is more strength than a 7 for me with that. Simply because it takes confidence to have this village of people and trust them and say, okay, what have you got? And let it unfold.
I don't reward confidence by itself because, you can be confident and do something completely idiotic. In fact,
Yeah.
I would argue that it takes a lot of confidence to be a complete moron.
Yeah. Will Porter's not in this film. So.
But, I don't know. I'm willing to knock it up a couple of tenths if you want to. Like, where do you want to head there?
Let's how about a nice 7.2? 0.2 for confidence.
Okay, 7.2.
Okay. I mean, if Will Porter's character was in this, definitely going up. But I think I'll probably go a little bit higher. I guess I still haven't really buttoned down my complete feelings about like the bookend scenes with, you know, the behind the scenes shots, but I definitely appreciate the swing and they're trying something different and they are trying to say something about storytelling and belief, and people believe what they're going to believe. This is another example of that with the way they're setting up this story. So I agree, I don't think it's entirely successful with that. But even with the main bulk of the film, I really like just this creeping camera that feels like it's constantly happening. Even at times when the camera isn't moving, you feel like it is, because there's a lot of it going on in varying speeds throughout the film, and I just love that kind of irregular rhythm of that, and that you get this feel that because of the heavy religious themes that, you know, Florence Pugh is always being kind of watched anyway, and it's making you more aware that you are watching this story, and that it makes you more complicit in this story as well as you watch it, if that makes sense. The details are really great. It feels dirty, like you feel like Florence Pugh's character never has had an opportunity to wash her dress at all. You know, it and also the music in this is really great. I loved the score in this movie. Some really great modern sounds here that somehow work really well in this period piece. So I will go like a straight 8 for me. Screenplay then. So the film sets up that Florence Pugh's character, Nurse Wright, has been sent to this small Irish village to watch this girl in shifts with a nun. And you're very much following Wright as she's being welcomed into this family's home to find out why she hasn't eaten anything for 4 months, the character of Anna. And at first, the clues are there already that this girl is being used as a wonder, as the title suggests, and a spectacle. Like the mother mentions that she has visitors and reminds them to donate money, that the little pillbox is there for them to leave money. Then Wright asks Anna, "Do you know why I'm here?" Anna says, "To make sure I don't eat." So the film isn't shying away from from the theory already that this is all a trick. So it's interesting that film is revealing this kind of very early on, so that you're thinking that there has to be something more here going on than just a simple kind of detective mystery thriller type movie. You know, that they're kind of giving it away already. So that was kind of a really interesting setup for the film, that they kind of set up the mystery of it, but yeah, the clues are extremely heavy in the favor of this is a trick already. So I found that fascinating.
Yeah, I also thought it was really smart to set this in the period of, you know, post-famine Ireland, because while it is based on some true stories of these fasting girls, those happened, you know, in a lot of different places, including the US and in the UK and Wales. But with this being set after the famine, you have a lot of people who have recently died from not eating, not by choice. So then having this person who is choosing not to eat, there can be so much meaning ascribed to that. It's it's solidarity. It's to deal with the pain and repent for something or whatever. There's all these ideas that you could ascribe because of what this community has recently gone through. So I think that was a really smart choice. And then having Nurse Wright be English when there's, famously huge tension between England and Ireland, really for centuries. but certainly in this particular time, yeah, and certainly in this particular time, post-famine, I think that was really brilliant decision. I'm assuming that was mapped over from the book because this was based on a book. But I do think that was something that I wanted to call out as being a smart part of the screenplay, along with what I had mentioned before about, I think that they do a really good job dealing with, the role of women in society and the relationship of women to starvation that continues into the present day, whether it's obsession with, looks or thoughts about women not being strong, that it's better for women to be seen as weak and things like that. So I think that they're doing a lot with that that's not necessarily upfront textually, but it is a part of the context and the subtext that really works for me in this movie. There's subtlety there, which I like. I think, again, that's part of what I don't like about the framing, is that it isn't subtle. And then they go on to show me that they are very capable of subtlety and suggestion about all of these different things that you could take from a story about a girl who is supposed to be fasting or starving. So I do think that it is quite a well done screenplay overall. And I think they did a lot with, what could have been. I mean, narratively, it's pretty simple. If you just look at the bare bones of the story, it's like nurse goes to investigate girl who's reported to be fasting for 4 months. Cool. Sounds good. But they do a lot with that, where they bring in a lot of other feelings and thoughts, and even where there's some things that, I don't think are very subtle. Like, I think the reason for it being kind of that she's trying to get her brother out of purgatory for the sins that they shared is kind of maybe not perfectly handled. I do think that, and I do think it can be kind of a cliche thing. There's so many times in so many different types of stories where, women being sexually abused is just used as a plot point, and it's kind of problematic. But I think, overall, I can forgive those issues here because I think that they are doing so much with the story. And I also want to call out that I really like that they are able to kind of resolve this in, I don't necessarily would call it a happy ending, but it's kind of at least a positive ending, that they're able to kind of create this sensation of death and rebirth for the character of Anna, that she can be reborn as Nan and not, she can let go of all of the trauma of Anna. And then, we actually see her sitting at the table with this new made family that they, the Tom Burke character and Nurse Wright and Anna, and she's eating, so she's moved away from this need for self-punishment and has, and I liked that because I don't think at any point during this movie I was expecting it to kind of have a positive resolution for that girl, but then it did. And it felt organic too.
Yeah, it felt very much like a 50-50, whether even more so against, for her, Anna biting the dust, and dying of starvation. But I think what's kind of really interesting about this film, like around the 40-minute mark, like how Nurse Wright kind of discovers what happens, like around the 40-minute mark, it becomes very clear for Nurse Wright that she's discovered nothing from just watching her, and Anna seems in good health. She's searched her room and found nothing, so Wright decides to restrict her family from seeing Anna. Then of course Anna starts becoming ill, and throughout most of the film you feel like Wright's hands are tied and she can't do anything to help, even to the point where if she discovers that it's proven that the family have been feeding Anna secretly, the family would be seen as frauds and be cast out of the village. Then when Wright does discover the truth as well, we've all suspected that her mother has been feeding her food like a bird, as if it's manna from heaven, as Anna puts it. Like the discovery is not the shocking part. Like it's the why that's the more kind of the emotional part of the film, not the reveal at all that we've kind of all suspected. Like the reason she's doing this is because she's trying to free her brother's soul from hell, as her brother has like assaulted her sexually over and over. You know, that's the real kind of horrifying thing about this film. But the worst part is that her own mother saw that Anna was to blame, and that's the reason why she's not eating. She's being punished for it. So it kind of forces Nurse Wright's hand to call the council, to call for the council again and plead for the watch to stop, and that the mother has been feeding her. But Anna denies it, and the council doesn't even want to believe the truth, only Anna's word, because obviously they all think that this has all been done because of divine intervention or something like that. So from then on, you have like no idea what Wright is going to do. So I love that. So I love it at this point that the focus is on the why this is happening emotionally and religiously, rather than discovering the secret of how Anna has been okay without eating before Wright arrived. So I do like the script in the way that you think that the kind of the reveal and the cathartic moments in this film are going to be how Wright discovers this. It's frankly the opposite. It's the why and the emotional reasoning is the more prominent part of the film.
Anything that you want to say? Because I railroaded.
No, I mean, I really feel like you're hitting it. I mean, with this film, I don't really feel like I feel that this film is very straightforward, and I feel that is its strength.
Yeah.
And everything that's being brought up here, I mean, is an interesting discussion, but it's covering the points. I don't feel that there's any extra adornments in any way. I mean, we even have, like Kieran Hines, who fantastic actor. He's just on the council. I mean, we hardly use him. It just, that speaks to the film. It's very much, we have our main cast, and then we have the council.
Would you want more council scenes?
Would I have liked more council scenes? I think for me, the council was something that was very tense for me, because I felt that they were a threat. And I felt that because they had hired Florence Pugh and they did not want her to be giving them this information, that they could have, through their own power, put her in jail, done something to her. I kept waiting for that to happen in the story. So there was that tension. But again, Nurse Wright, very smart, very intelligent. She knew exactly how to play this council. And I liked that. I think that my favorite scenes in this had to be with Tom Burke. Tom Burke, Furiosa, it's the first thing that comes to mind. Incredible. And that character was a real breath of fresh air, and also a surprise as well. Because I didn't really know that he would go along with this idea of taking off with the kid in the middle of the night.
Kidnapping, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, he called it out. Yeah. And, it's just like...
Says it himself, yeah.
And also, I mean, I thought it was amazing just how upfront everyone was. Nurse Wright is like, I could love you, something like that. And it's like, wow. Like, it's just, things really moved forward in this film at a very quick pace in terms of this new family being born. So much of the film dealt with death, stagnation, literal darkness, that when we had this escape in this new world, you could feel the change. It reminded me of like back when we talked about Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Yeah.
They went and they got their photo. It was like this new period in their lives. It was this new joy. And then I can't remember the name that they ended up taking, but just like the name Lib Wright, the new name had some significance as well.
Cheshire. I think they said.
Cheshire, yeah, like a Cheshire smile, like haha, I gotcha. You know what I mean? That's what I got from it.
I think it was probably just because she was from the north.
Okay, that, you know what, that could nail it too.
Yeah.
But it just, I responded to this movie emotionally, and I felt the pain that was going on. And I think that's what we're supposed to feel. I think this is another film that's cathartic about pain. And then at the end, that's what I can't get over. Midsommar, and then this, we have a brand new family in each film. And in both films, I in no way thought that anyone was making it out alive. And, The Wonder, I truly thought Tom Burke, if he went along with it, he was going to get busted. Or maybe Tom Burke would be like, this is not right, and inform the authorities. I didn't feel that we would have this wonderful moment. I think that is the wonder. Right? That is the wonder, is that we had, this great ending. And also that in as much as you had so many greedy and selfish people in this town, and you had this council, which was corrupt, there were still very good people left. And they began a new life.
Well, in the council,
they just want validation that this is like divine intervention or something. That they just want proof of that,
and they just want to keep pushing it until they get that. And they're very ineffective. I mean, Flynn just continually is just bitching about everything the whole time. Father Thaddeus basically doesn't say much at all, which again is Kieran Hines, and I'm like, what are you doing with Kieran Hines? Who's like so good.
I kept waiting for something more to happen.
And then Toby Jones is like the doctor, is kind of just country doctor, like, he's not really committing to anything one way or the other. And I feel like that the only thing that those guys actually felt strongly about was that they wanted this woman to shut up, which often happens in real life. When you're a strong woman, sometimes, the only thing people can agree with is they want you to zip your lip. And that is kind of what was happening here, is that they couldn't really agree on anything, except for the fact that they probably shouldn't have had this woman come, because she's, not suited, because she's not just following along with what they need. But I thought it was sort of interesting there too, because their whole thing is that they're the authority, and they're used to being the authority, and having somebody come in to them and disrupt that, even though they've invited this person in, is very disturbing to them. Like, because they also brought this nun in, but she's following, the line of what she's supposed to do, which is just kind of feed them back whatever it is that they want her to say. But Nurse Wright is not doing that, and they kind of feel like angry about it. And it's funny, because it's like, well, you're the one who asked her here, but then you weren't ready to hear what she was going to say. So I think that's interesting. I think it's not a bad screenplay, because it does have a lot of elements that come together and make a good story that is really emotionally satisfying and does take you on the journey of this main character.
I really did like the last few scenes. As you say, it's very satisfying. And in the final 20 minutes, like, the truth is very much known between Wright and Anna's mother. And Anna's mother's position on Anna's future hasn't changed. She will be going to heaven, not like her son. So Wright has no help from the council, or seemingly even from Tom Burke's character, Will, at this point. So Wright's only option is to basically kidnap her and burn the house down. But what's really interesting is, before Wright takes Anna away, Wright basically uses Anna's belief system in Anna's favor, but telling her that Anna will die, but you'll be reborn as none, effectively. It goes back to a little conversation they had about calling each other different names, when you think that scene had kind of no significance. It was just more of a character bonding thing. So I just liked the fact that Wright has been fighting this family against their religion, but now uses it to save Anna's life, effectively. So Wright obviously has emotional motivation herself, as she lost her own baby, which I think is, I guess, a tad cliched and not necessarily needed. But the only thing I didn't like about it was when Wright gets caught when she gets her hands caught on fire, she's just like standing there waiting for the house to burn down, still inside. It gets burned, then decides to run out. So that was a bit frustrating, but that definitely wasn't part of the plan when she gets questioned to the council, I don't think, again.
No, I don't
but
think
it worked in her favor, I guess. So that was my only kind of gripe about the end. But I just love this kind of realization moment for Wright that she's going about all this the wrong way with Anna, that, hang on, let's try and kind of play to her childlike qualities in a way and just be like, okay, your Anna is going to die, but Nan will come back. You'll be transformed into Nan. And I thought that was, I mean, on paper, it sounds silly. It sounds really silly, but I think the journey getting to that point, I think, works really well for both of these characters, I think. So yeah, it definitely worked for me, that kind of reveal, the actual realization moment reveal, if you will, in this film. Yeah, it works well for me. Funny, interesting lines. Well, I'm due a nun and a nurse, and you're not the nun. That's probably the funniest line there is. But
that was good. That was really good.
Yeah,
that was really good.
I don't know.
I have zero quotes. I have nothing.
I like this one that I just looked up the quotes off of IMDb to remind me of anything. But I do like when Anna says, "Sorrow is God's spade, it readies the ground."
Ooh, that is good.
Like, she says a lot of like really cryptic, like poetic stuff that I think she's trying to cultivate the idea that her fasting is like, this path to wisdom, and that's part of it. But I do think it's a good line, so it works.
Kind of a sad one from Florence Pugh, Nurse Wright, when you feel like all hope is lost for saving Anna, and she just says, "I will nurse her until she dies, as I have done many times before." It's quite a deep one. Yeah, and as I kind of mentioned with that last point in screenplay, Anna's going to die, but Nan is going to live. It's very simply put, no like bells and whistles on that kind of situation for her. Really great. But I think my favorite line for me is during the voiceover towards the end, and I think when she's on the train, and I guess O'Donnell says, in her other character, the narrator character, she says, "It is a whole soulful world that's too hungry to see the wonder in every ordinary child." Yeah, I thought that was quite a poignant quote from the film that kind of sums up this whole kind of time period and film as well, that there's so much kind of desperation and death through the famine period, that they're trying to clasp onto any hope, and unfortunately that hope is being clasped onto ordinary children in like what we've just seen in this story.
Yeah, I like that one.
And forgetting that they're just ordinary kids trying to grow up.
And that's the thing, like, it's a kid doesn't have to do something profound and special to be important. They just have to exist, and I think that is a meaningful statement.
Screenplay score, guys, what are you going for?
I mean, I pitched this one a little bit higher. Like I said, I'm not double dipping on that one issue that I have. But I think this is really a competently written movie. I think the story's good, and I think that a lot of the decisions they made about it are good. So I would give this like an 8.5.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
Yeah, 8.5? Okay. Yeah, I do really like this screenplay. I love a slow burn as well, and I just love kind of just really trying to sink my teeth into just really trying to figure films out like this. And I just love this kind of structure that you think you know what you're watching, but it turns out to be something completely different, certainly in terms of its structure. You think it's going to be like this detective thing from Florence Pugh's character's perspective. I mean, it is that, but what's great about this film is that, like, they are literally telling you the answer of how this family are feeding this kid, but that's not the point of the film. That's not the cathartic moment of the film, and even though that's what you think is going to happen, so yeah, it's it's really great, like emotionally at the end. So I am going to go like an 8.7. Yeah, I just did not expect where this film was going in the end, and I really appreciate that. And I'm a little bit more forgiving on the bookend stuff, but yeah, 8.7 for me. Right, acting then. Florence Pugh, as always, is incredible. Like the first 20 minutes, she's very level-headed and calm and gives off this confidence and holds herself in a way that she knows she's a professional in nursing and English. Like she holds slightly higher status than everyone she meets in Ireland. But at the same time, there are moments where she's very cautious. Then there's this kind of scene after she mentions she has no children and widowed, where she's leaning against her bed and opens out this cloth, and you see these kind of tiny baby socks, which looks very cute, and some sort of drug that she takes, and she pricks her finger and drinks her own blood, and it's kind of like she's trying to sort of feel something again, rather than kind of always being not robotic, but just always being in this very professional mode, very guarded mode that she's in. And this is her own way of just really trying to break out of that privately. And here it's certainly the scenes where she shows a lot of vulnerability and emotion until we get to those last few scenes. Yeah, and also it's not too like overdone as well. Like, not to say the stuff in Midsummer is overdone. That's the whole point of that film, with the expressive emotional acting. But there's nothing too crazy here, which I liked. Yeah, Florence Pugh, fantastic.
Yeah, she's
as always
really amazing. And again, like we said, this is another movie that I don't think you necessarily have a successful film without her as the lead. She just is really great at everything she does. She brings like the emotional element. She always has like something else going on in her mind that you can see. She handles herself very well physically as well. Like, we've talked to other people, like we have a friend who does opera, and she said that some of like the clothing that you have to wear helps you because it kind of helps you get into that mode of being a part of that time. And I think that that's probably part of it with Florence Pugh. But I also think she has like this physicality that both communicates that she's a nurse and communicates that she is kind of a strong person. And then you have the contrast of when she's alone and she's taking whatever that medication is, that her hair kind of falls loose and she's like languidly lying around on the bed. And it's a completely different physicality in those scenes than in the nurse scenes. So she's bringing that contrast in. And I even think you see that in her relationship with Will, because I feel like she's even kind of physically rigid around him because it's hard for her to open up. So, I think that that's really something that Florence Pugh is brilliant at, is expressing things emotionally, but also physically. And I think that in this, I think I see that even more than I saw that in Midsommar, which is something. So, and then the other people in this are very good as well. Like, I don't think that there were any people who kind of stuck out to me. Brian O'Byrne as Flynn is so ridiculous, but he does a really good job just being this annoying, kind of not intelligent person who has some measure of authority and just flogging it to death. And I think he does a really good job with that. I think, Toby Jones does a great job. He's always good in everything, too.
Yeah.
And Kieran Hines, even though I don't think they gave him enough, is, as usual, like this. He's got that great stony face. And, he, as the kind of the representative of the church, is just kind of going along with it because the ends are more important to all of these people than how they get there. I mean, they just want the proof that this is a miracle and that they are special and there is something good about them. And I think from the priest's point of view, that would be, a big feather in his cap, if he could in his parish have, this miracle happen. So it's really good. And I also think somebody to call out is the mother, Anna's mother. Anna's also really good too, and seeing that strong of a performance from a young actor is always a big thing. But the actress who plays Anna's mother is excellent, and she's a very complex character because she has at once to care about her family, her children, but also she's more worried about their souls than their life on Earth, which I think, is problematic. You need to have balance. Like, okay, if you're somebody who believes that your actions matter in the afterlife and the afterlife is important, but life is also important. And this character has like a certain sort of ruthlessness that comes out in different places, and I think that actor plays it really well.
I liked all the performances across the board. I feel that the performances in this were another really impressive showing. I mean, we talked about Midsommar and how good that was. I feel like once again in this film, we do have that same caliber of acting.
And Neve Algar, who plays Kitty, although I'm not in love with some of the choices, I think that she does a really good job as both Kitty and fake person, whoever she is.
Fake Kitty.
The dual role of Kitty and weird actor playing Kitty. I think that she is doing what she's being asked to do, whether I like it or not. I think she does a really good job of it in both types of roles. And she does a really good job flipping in the one part where she breaks the fourth wall. I think that's what makes it disturbing, in that way, is that it's so seamless that she goes from acting to then be completely breaking character. It's pretty, well managed.
Yeah, I think like all the performances across the board are incredibly good, but like again, like Florence Pugh is the standout, and I think a lot of her best work in this is towards the end as well, like where she has this kind of emotional determination and focus to save this child, Anna. And I particularly liked it when Anna is now Nan by the well, and Florence Pugh kind of walks back to the house and she looks quite scared, but she knows exactly what she needs to do to save this girl. Then when Nan is saved and Wright is like summoned to the council for the last time, like Florence Pugh looks completely emotionally broken. That stern exterior from the start is completely gone. There's even a small scene where she's like standing next to a wall by a fire, completely still, as if she's numb, waiting to get caught, potentially. Like, yeah, incredibly vulnerable at the end, but in a very kind of different way to Midsommar. Completely different way. So, yeah, incredible range from Miss Pugh. Silly question again, favorite performance? But I say it every episode.
Florence Pugh, yeah, obviously. I mean,
Pugh Florence.
Pugh, Florence. Yeah, she's
absolutely
she's killer.
Acting score though, what are you going for?
I mean, I have to go high here again because I think the acting is really what makes this work.
I'm somewhere in the 9 range.
Yeah, I'm in the 9s. I probably would be like maybe 9 point. I'm gonna give it a 9.3.
That's what I was thinking.
All right.
Great. Well
We
done.
did it.
All right.
Great minds. I guess mine is less great because I'll probably go a little bit lower. I don't know. Yeah, I think Florence Pugh is definitely the standout. Again, like I think the supporting cast is a lot better in Midsommar compared to this one. Like the actress who plays Anna is great. Her mother is great. I think those are like second and third picks for me.
And Tom Burke is good too. I don't think we talked about him that much, but I do think he's very good. I think that the point maybe is that there's just not as much for them to do. Like the supporting cast of Midsommar still had a lot to do. They had a lot to portray, and because this is a little bit more theatrical, the folks in The Wonder seem a little bit more like stock character types or just townspeople, so they aren't as well fleshed out That's just where what I'm saying.
No, I get that too. It's just like a Greek chorus.
It's like, yeah.
They're all just kind of on the same page. Yeah.
Minded the way they handled it.
Yeah, so I'll go like a 9.1, I think. So not so great mind from me. So, right, let's add up the scores then for The Wonder.
We need the council to add these scores up because they look like a panel of Olympic judges, you know?
Just 9.1.
Yeah.
I guess that makes me the East German judge from the 80s. Knocks down on the directing score.
And The Wonder gets a very impressive 50.8. So Midsummer takes it pretty comfortably, as expected, when you picked it.
I just want to say,
congratulations again.
We kind of left, when we did John Carpenter movies with you, we left the thing on the table for you. So, this time I was like, nope, Midsummer is coming with me.
Absolutely. Right, next episode, as Ballerina is out, the spin-off of the John Wick franchise from John Wick Chapter 3, I believe. So we are talking spin-off films. And we're having another great returning guest. Lee from Lights Camera Rant is back yet again. So do check that one out. That should be an awesome one. As always, guys, you have been incredible as always. And it is nearly tomorrow. But tell us about your podcast and where can we find you?
Well, next time we definitely need to start earlier too. Good point.
No, it's fine.
We should not allow 2 hours because that's ridiculous. It's got to be 4. We are Comfort Films Podcast. We like to discuss the movies that you keep watching again and again. You can find us wherever you listen to your podcast. Most of our listeners go on Apple or Spotify. We're also on Google and other places as well. We have not done an episode so far this year, but we do have Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves coming soon, probably next month.
Woohoo.
Great movie. We were really looking forward to that, and it's a good one to kick it off. But if you want to check us out, we have 132 backlog episodes, so you have plenty of catching up to do before Dungeons and Dragons comes out. And then if you want to check us out on socials, you can follow us on Blue Sky / Twitter. We're kind of on both. We're also on Instagram, which is where most of our activities are. And we do have a Facebook page, if that's your thing.
You can also take a look at our website, comfortfilmspodcast.com. We've got some essays from guests, and we've got some links to some cool clips from shows. We like to talk about the mac and cheese film. And even though we are supposed to be comforting, as Martin pointed out, sometimes it's anything but comforting what we discuss. But it's just, is it good? Do we like it? Do we watch it over again? Do you?
Different people get comforted by different things.
Yeah.
Martin's first guest appearance with us was the movie Predator, which was a great episode. We had a blast talking about it. Is it traditional comfort?
Yes.
Nope. No, it is not. However, it was a perfect choice, and that's consistently been in our top 10 episodes forever. So it's great. So yes, definitely. If you want to check us out and you want some representative episodes, check out some of the Martin guested episodes, which would be
absolutely
Predator, Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid,
The Guns of Navarone.
Those were very good.
I do love talking about the older movies with you guys.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And of course, we'll have you back later this year as well.
Yeah, I grew up on those kind of movies. Yeah. Right, it's time to say goodbye, people. I know it's very sad, very sad. It is goodbye from John. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
It is goodbye from Georgia. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
And it is goodbye from me. And goodbye from the Swedes as well. But sorry, I'm never going to your country. Bye-bye. That's it for part 2. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out part 1 if you haven't done so already. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell me what your favourite films are relating to the episodes. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for X at FVF_podcast. Plus, we are now on YouTube, so hit that like button and comment there. If you do, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.